Hi everyone, it's Amy, Gables Stitcher, here with a stitching update video. Today is June 6, 2022, and it's less than 4 months since my last video. I keep saying that I really do want to make more consistent videos. 2 is not the charm, but it's a big step in the right direction. So I had a little time. I figured I am going to pop on and show you what I have been working on. I do not have a ton of stitching to show you from the last 3 weeks. It has been very busy. My oldest graduated from high school yesterday. It was a gorgeous day in New England, and it was just really amazing to see her and her friends and just how happy they were and to really celebrate them yesterday. So as you can imagine, the last few weeks have been really busy. But I did stitch some. I have a finish. I have a few whips. I went to Celebrations of Needlework in Nashua, New Hampshire, so I have a few things to show you that I brought back from there. And if this video is as short as I think it might be, I'm going to give you my top 3 books so far this year in 2022, because we are about halfway through the year. And despite the fact that my background has all these books in it, I seldom talk about books here on my cross-stitching videos, but I figured I'll throw a few little recommendations in at the end. So let's get started. As I said, I did have one finish. I finished Mirabilia's Halloween Fairy. So I will put a picture in of where she was last. This is a small Mirabilia that comes as a kit. I bought mine a long time ago. So long ago, it came with Crescent colors, which I believe is now Classic Colorworks. As you can see, I still have plenty of floss left. I did run out of one color, but not a big deal. I just substituted in some DMC. It was black coffee, so I substituted in DMC 3371, which is a black brown. It was essentially the same color. So I stitched her with the called for threads, and I used a lavender even weave. Did not use the fabric that came in the kit, and here she is. So I think she's gorgeous. She's a little blown out, but you can see the sparkles there. I also used some blending filament in her wings. So I used 1 strand of floss and 1 strand of blending filament. A little bit of beading, not a ton. I'll move her back so she's a little bit closer to true colors. And there she is. So she is small. I haven't measured her. I think she will fit in a standard 8x10 frame. So I am going to see what I have in my pile of frames. And if I have something that works, I'll pop her in. Otherwise, I'll just keep my eyes out and hope to find something soon before Halloween so I can pop her in. Mirabilia's, this is my first finished Mirabilia. So I'm very excited. She was a lot of fun to stitch. A lot of people are, and myself included, are intimidated by Mirabilia designs because there is a lot of stitching. There's beads, they're kind of fancy, but it's just cross stitching 1x at a time. And even the beads are 1x at a time to put the beads on. So if you are looking to try a Mirabilia and you're a little intimidated, these fairies are perfect because everything comes with them. I think there's like 6 of the Halloween fairies. Another good option are the Nora Corbett designs, which are the same designer, Nora Corbett, but those tend to be a little bit smaller and, a little bit of a smaller bite to take. So to decide if you like that type of stitching before you take a bite out of a huge Mirabilia, that might take a long time to stitch. So I was very excited to finish her. That was most of my stitching time over the past 3 weeks. Those wings were a lot of stitching, but I am very happy to have her done. I had said in my last floss tube video, I was unsure of how many whips I had. Whips meaning works in progress, because I had started so many things and I had kind of stopped counting. I was at 40. Finished her, I'm down to 39. Now, while 39 to some is an alarming number of whips, to other people it's no big deal. For me, it kind of depends on my mood. Right now, I'm feeling like that's a lot. So I'm very happy right now to stitch on my works in progress, my current projects, and not start anything else. We'll see how I feel in a week or two, but that's where I am today. My second project I worked on is Blackbird Designs, Humming of the Bees. This was a Nashville release, market release 2022 this year. I am using most of the call for floss. I did substitute in some Victorian Mono floss and some color and cotton from my stash for colors I didn't have. I will pop in a picture of where this was last time you saw it. I am stitching this on a Seraphim Fabrics. It is in the color Old Stationery, which is a wonderful neutral by Seraphim, and it's on 40 count. And this is where it is. Someday I'll be a grown-up floss tuber and have a board that I can clip things to, but I always forget. So I use my pattern. So this is where I am. I finished the border. It is quite wrinkled because I've been stitching this one in hand, but I finished the border and it met up, and I did a little happy dance because I don't always trust myself to count that far, but it did meet up. So that was really exciting. It's kind of a fun border. It's funky because it's not the same all the way around. And then I started doing some fill-in. I love the colors of this. I'm going to hold it back again so you can kind of see the colors. They're not washed out. So really like pretty colors, just nice gradients of green and rose, and it's really been a pleasure to stitch on. This for me has the perfect blend of stitching. It has some repetitive stitching with the border and with the house. And it has some stitching where you need to kind of pay attention and count with the rest of the motifs. So for me, that's kind of a nice mix. And that's why I did the border first. So that way now I can pretty much jump to wherever I want in the pattern. I think this will probably be kept out and be worked on more because I am really enjoying it. The next project I worked on was Wicked Christmas by Sarah Gramani, who's an Italian designer. Up there. So a little combination between Halloween meets Christmas. I'll put a picture in of where I was the last time I worked on it. I am stitching this on a 20 count Ada in the colorway Vintage Country Mocha with the called for DMC floss. And I actually worked on this quite a bit. So you can see where I am now. Kind of working my way down. I did a lot of fill-in of this cloud by that witch. I completely finished this motif here, which had quite a bit of stitching in it. And then I moved down to kind of outline the building for some fill-in. I've discovered that I can stitch on 20 count Ada relatively easily while I am watching television. Our lighting in our living room is not very good, and I don't always like to work with a lamp in there, but I can work on the Ada while watching TV quite happily, especially if I'm doing fill-in. We've been watching playoff basketball because the Celtics are in the NBA finals. Been watching them up to this point. So what I've been doing is I've been outlining a little bit and then filling in while we're watching the game. This has worked quite well for me. And I really am enjoying stitching on the 20 count Aida. One strand of floss, so it's giving me really nice coverage, and it's really a nice fabric to stitch on. This is another project that has a good blend for me of confetti stitching or just like needing to pay attention to block stitching. So this part here has a lot of colors and counting, and then this block stitching down here. So just a fun project. I'm enjoying it, and we'll continue working on it for a little bit, and then it'll probably go away and we'll see what it comes out again. Last project I worked on, told you, hasn't been much, was And They Sinned by Exemplar Dames. This is a very old chart. This is it when it is done. And I know it's a horrible picture of the design. I am stitching this with everything subbed out. I'm using some Victorian model floss, and I'm also using DMC. This chart calls for, I believe, mostly Gentle Arts threads. And I had, I think, one color. So what I did is I found the DMC equivalent and pulled something I liked. And honestly, as I'm stitching this piece, I am just pulling and subbing and putting in whatever, because it is a very funky design. So this is where I am. This is on 40 count Country Mocha. And I'm gonna pull it back a little bit. I don't know if you can see, but what I did is I am outlining, there's a big cloud here that goes like this. It's actually two colors. And I'm outlining the cloud, and you can't see that white because it's like one strand of floss on 40 count. It's not very saturated with one stitch here or there. And I'm putting the motifs inside so I can fill in while I'm watching TV or, you know, need a little bit of break from counting. So this is where I am. I put that second cherub in since the last time as well. And I am enjoying stitching this. So hopefully I showed you a picture of where it was last. I'm sure I'll pop it in. Not a ton of stitching, but I am enjoying this. This chart is still in print. In one of my older videos, I thought it was out of print. I think that it was a little bit hard to find for a while, but more people have been stitching the Exemplar Dames charts, which is great because they're fabulous charts. And now more retailers are carrying them. I think they were never out of print. They weren't necessarily readily available though. So you can still stitch this if you would like. And that's my stitching. I have really been enjoying what I'm working on. Like I said, the Halloween Fairy was probably the majority of my stitching over the last 3 weeks. And I'm really happy that I finished her. I know I said in the last video, if I just put one strand a day in, it would be done. Didn't put one strand a day in, but you know, I did finish her. Some days I worked on her a lot, other days I didn't touch her, but it's nice to have her done. And I am so looking forward to having her in a frame. Plans. What do I plan on working on? So now that Halloween Fairy is done, I've kind of been looking at my list of projects to decide what is either close to a finish or what is a really old project that I would like to move towards a finish. So I did think of one. I'm going to pause for a minute. And I'll put these together, videos together. I did think of a project the other day that I would like to pull out and work on, and let me show it to you. So I'll have a nice before picture so that if I do work on it, you'll see exactly what I did. Okay, I can't believe I forgot to pull that out. So after I finished the Halloween Fairy, I was talking with a couple of my Frugal Yankee stitching friends, and they were asking me what next, because I've been talking about finishing Sampler 1830, my green blanket, for years, literally years. And that was my one goal this year, was to finish it. And I finished it. And I finished another old project, Halloween Fairy. So what's next? And I don't really have many things that are close to a finish right now. I have a lot of large projects and nothing that I can easily finish, which is okay. I'm okay with just stitching on things, but I decided, let's pull out my oldest project. So this is my oldest project. This is the only picture I have. This is what the cover picture was back in the day. This is Constance Thayer sampler from R&R Reproductions. It is not a reproduction sampler. It is a sampler, original sampler design. I took a class with R&R Reproductions in 2003 at Celebrations of Needlework in Nashua, New Hampshire. So this project is older than my child who graduated from high school yesterday. It's time to get done. So I pulled it out. I haven't worked on it in a number of years, and I couldn't remember whereabouts in the project I was. Just, it's probably not gonna get finished this year, but couldn't remember what I had done. I was actually pleasantly surprised because not only did I have a little bit more done than I thought, it's not as big as I thought. So this is what I have done. I'm gonna hold it back so I can get a screenshot for the next video. Apparently, I am somebody who likes to complete the entire border of a project, which I didn't realize, but seems to be a pattern for me. So this is on a piece of 32 count R&R linen, and it's stitched with 2 strands of floss over 2 linen threads, mostly in DMC. There's 1 or 2 weeks dye works in there. This chart is 6 pages. 2 across, 3 down. Page 1 is almost done. I kind of petered out in the lettering because it was over 1. I needed a break and then I didn't pick it back up again. So my thought is to work on this here and there and try to get the first couple of pages done, the top. I think that's doable. And like everything else, once I start working on it, I'll decide if I enjoy it and want to keep it out and continue to work on it, or set a goal, meet it, and put it away for a little bit longer. Or if it's not calling to me and I don't think I'm going to work on it, think about abandoning the project. I don't think I'm going to abandon this project because I enjoyed it the last time I worked on it. I just had new shiny things to work on. But I would like to finish this before it is 21 and legal to drink. Can already vote. So I would like to finish it in the next 3 years. I think that's going to be my next push for a finish for my older projects. Anything that's older than 10 years old, I consider a legacy whip, not like important to finish. I'd like to try to finish 1 of those projects a year. This year I finished 2. So I'm ahead of the game, but I would like to work on that to get it closer to a finish for 2023. And other than that, I'm just going to work on what I want to work on. That's been my stitching philosophy this year. Stitch what I want, when I want. And I've got to tell you, I'm really enjoying it. So we're going to continue with that. That is the end of like actual stitching content I'm going to show you. So if you're only here for the stitching, thank you so much. And, you know, I'll see you next time. If you want to see what I picked up at Celebrations of Needlework, and I'll tell you a little bit about that event, stick around, and I'm going to give my top 3 books of 2022 so far. So first, I'm going to show you a couple of things that I added to my collection that are not from Celebrations of Needlework. I need to live to 900, guys, to stitch everything I have. So I think I need to stop buying new shiny things. But I picked up this on Stash Unloading, and this is not a new shiny thing. This is an old chart I've never seen before. The chart is, the needlework company is called Of Generations Past. The designer is Joanne Thayer, and it's from 2010. And I had never seen this before, and I picked it up, obviously, because of the fact that it is Salem, Massachusetts. And what really caught my eye is this little sampler here. So it's an ABC sampler with Salem places and events represented by the letters. And I thought that was really cool. Unfortunately, this designer passed away. I looked her up when I got the chart because I'd never seen it before and I didn't know her. So this is probably a, you know, harder to find chart. I'm really glad I happened across it because it does have a personal connection and meaning to me. And I would like to stitch this sooner rather than later so I could pass it on to somebody else who would like to stitch it. But I thought that was really neat. I had mentioned in my last video that I joined Treehouse Fiber Arts Fabric Club. It's a quarterly club, which for me right now is perfect because I have a lot of fabric. I don't need fabric, but I enjoy trying new dyers and having, you know, fabric come to me every few months. And I use it. I mean, I use my fabric stash all the time. So I joined the club. My first delivery, first shipment will come in July, but they had posted that they had some in stock on their website a few weeks ago. So I'm not taking these out of the, what do you call it, plastic, because it is labeled, the plastic's labeled. So I'll show you, hopefully without too much, glare. So I picked up 2 pieces that they had in stock. This is a piece of 40 count. It is Boston Tea Party. It's a really nice, just neutral. I mean, with a name like Boston Tea Party, I had to get it. Sorry. One more crinkle, and the crinkle will be over. The other one is called New England Gray. And that is beautiful. It's a gray. It's like a bluey gray color. Gorgeous. So I will link them below. I think their Fabric of the Month closed like right after I joined, but they do have a wait list. And I've heard other floss tubers talk about them. I got to see and feel their linen at the Frugal Yankee get together, and it's really nice. So I will put some of the information below. So Celebrations of Needlework is a yearly cross-stitching convention in Nashua, New Hampshire. It typically takes place in May every year. It used to be at the very beginning of May. Now sometimes it's middle of May or closer to the end of May. It is a 4-day event with shopping, classes from designers. There's a stitching lounge. There is like a dinner. They have a breast cancer fundraiser. It's a great event. It's a lot of fun. I have not been up for the full weekend in a really long time. I was planning on going this year, but I was only able to make it there for the day, which is fine. It is what it is. If you are in New England or Northeast or would like to travel here during May, check it out. I will put a link in the description box below. And it is kind of a create your own retreat type of retreat. I didn't take any classes. I haven't taken any classes there since like 2005. That 2003 sampler was the first class I took at Celebrations of Needlework. And I've taken 3 or 4 more, but I'm not very good at finishing them. So I haven't taken any more classes. You don't have to take classes, but they're there if you would like to take them. The designers who do the classes also typically have a trunk show booth in their market. So it's really nice to be able to talk to them and see the models and, you know, see their other works. And there's nothing like seeing a needlework model. I mean, it just takes something that is beautiful in a picture to stunning and just amazing to see it. And of course, there's other stitchers. So I'm going to show you just a few things of what I got. This fabric is not in, in bags, so this one's better to see. Inspired Needle from Illinois is there. They typically go just about every year, and they always bring amazing fabric with them. So I was able to get a fat half of Barb's blend from R&R Fabrics. This was a new color this year, in tribute to Barb from Blackbird Designs. This is a 36 count. And I have not tried the new week's Zweiart blend, so I picked up a piece of cocoa in 40 count. Primitive Needle. I wish Primitive Needle was there. Primitive Hair generally has a trunk show. Either Isabella is there or there's her trunk show that is there, and with all of her models, and they are really beautiful in person. So every time I go to celebrations, I treat myself to one of her charts. It's really the only time I buy one of her charts, so it reminds me of celebrations when I stitch it. And this was my chart this year. It is a needle book called Moon, and it is stunning stitched up. There is some rainbow gallery braid in there, so it's a little sparkly. Really beautiful. So her models are stunning to see. One of the designers who was teaching a class that I thought about taking, but didn't end up taking because, like I said, I need to finish the classes I've already taken, and I only was there for a day, was Cross Stitch Antiques. So she has samplers, and her booth was wonderful because she had the antiques and she had the stitched models for most of them. So this one I just loved. I had it. I couldn't walk by without getting it. The blue alphabet is just gorgeous. The antique and the model are just stunning. So this is called Band of Roses 1845 Antique Sampler. And then this one too caught my eye. And she didn't have a reproduction, a model of this one, but the original sampler was gorgeous. Jean Donaldson. I have never stitched a sampler Cross Stitch Antiques chart before. Her charts are really good. Her name is Kathleen Littleton, is the designer. She's lovely, very nice to talk to. Really had a couple of good conversations with her. Her charts, I can't show you because I don't want to show you the charts, but they are large, easy to read, and her directions look really good. So this would be the smarter one to start because it's small, but I can tell you this is the one I'm going to start first because I'm itching to start it because the colors on this is just stunning. So that was one of the booths. Silk Weavers, Needleworkers Delight from New Jersey is always there. And I don't need fabric, but I bought two pieces. I bought these are even weave, navy 28 count. And I saw this red. I'm going to hold it back to get the true color. It's like this gorgeous cranberry 32 count even weave. And when I saw this, if anybody watches Cynthia Brew, I'll link her channel below. She is stitching the Plum Street Samplers 12 Days of Christmas, which is a free design on her blog on this red fabric that she dyed, but in a red color fabric just like this, and it's stunning. So I bought that. Cynthia is very creative. She comes up with fantastic ideas for dyeing fabric and dyeing trim and using what you have. And I've learned a lot from her. I'm nowhere near as creative as she is. And the fabric she dyed for that 12 Days of Christmas is fantastic. And I've been thinking about it since I saw it on one of her videos. So I was very happy to see that ready from Weave. And one last item I'm going to show you. Like, any time stitchers get together, there's always an exchange table. Charts that you have finished with or decide you don't want to stitch, you put there and you pick up another couple as you're leaving. I always try to come back negative. Doesn't always work. But this chart I found on the table, I was so excited to find it. Dutch Hornbook by Bright Needle Designs. I love Bright Needle. Bright Needle Designs had been out of print for quite a while. They are releasing their charts again. And they are, I've heard, coming up with new designs. So very exciting. I did not have this chart, so I squealed a little bit when I saw it, and was happy to pick it up and add to my collection. So if you were the stitcher who left this, thank you very much. I hope maybe you found one of my charts that I left there to stitch and bring home with you. I always say that the freebie exchange tables are kind of like your life in cross stitch. You go, every time I'm there, I go through and I see things from like the 80s when I started stitching, and then, oh, I stitched that, and oh, I didn't stitch that, but I thought about stitching it. So it's always kind of a nice trip down memory lane, and I meet some of the nicest people looking through charts and talking at the exchange tables at retreats. So whoever donated this, thank you very much. So that's been the last 3 weeks for me, stitching and some shopping, and it's been good, and I'm looking forward to doing more stitching. I shouldn't do more shopping, so we're not going to say we're looking forward to doing more shopping. I'm going to talk a little bit, just quickly give you my top 3 books so far of 2020. Started talking about books and like I went blank. I couldn't remember the titles, couldn't remember the authors. So I went and made myself a cheat sheet. I'm going to give my top 3. Number 1 is by far number 1. I can predict now that it will likely be number 1 for the year, or it's going to be top 3. It's going to be hard to knock off where it is. Fantastic book. I've recommended it to several people in real life, and everybody who has read it has loved it. Number 2 and 3 were really good, just not there. 2 and 3, no particular order. Let me look at my notes. I'm going to put in covers as I'm talking about them, because despite the fact I am sitting in a library with lots of books, I took these books out of the public library on my Kindle device. So I didn't actually read any of the ones that are behind me. The first book is Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Riley Sager is a pseudonym for another author. I don't know which author it is a pseudonym for, but under the name Riley Sager, a book every year, typically in June, is published. I think there's 6, maybe 7. There is another one coming out June of this year. The Riley Sager books, I've read 2, have been what I would term as kind of a gothic type of mystery, which I love gothic mysteries. There is a historical element to it. Generally, there is some sort of history behind a building or an event, and it's happening in the present, but there's something that was kind of looming in the past and that is affecting the present. And you don't know whether or not it's a supernatural type of event, because there's always hints of that, or if it's just something that has a, kind of ordinary or extraordinary explanation. So Lock Every Door takes place in New York City in a historic apartment building called the Bartholomew. It is a building that is very mysterious. It has been a fixture in the city for over 100 years, and It is a very exclusive building, and it kind of has like an aura of mystique about it. So the book starts out where a young woman is kind of down on her luck. She lost her job, she lost her boyfriend, she doesn't have any family, and she sees an ad in the paper to somebody's looking for an apartment sitter. And they don't give the address or anything. And it turns out that this exclusive apartment building that has very few apartments and you can't even buy your way into has a clause that no apartment can be sitting empty for more than a month. And they're looking for somebody to apartment sit and get paid for it for a 3-month period of time. So she thinks this is perfect because she needs a place to live and she needs a job. Let's give her time to look for a job. Well, once she moves in, things start kind of not looking as good as she thought they were. You know, there's a lot of weird things that are happening, people disappearing, other apartment sitters, and nobody really knows what's going on. And a lot of times if a deal is too good to be true, it usually is. And she's trying to put together the pieces as people are disappearing, and she's not allowed to talk to the regular residents of the building. And it was a page turner. It goes back and forth in time, gives you a little bit of the history of this fictional building and, you know, what may or may not have happened in the past. And mostly takes place in the present. And it's one of those books where you don't really know who is the good person and who is the bad person. So I enjoyed it. I kind of was not expecting the ending, and I read quite a few mysteries and gothic books. So when I have an ending that I wasn't expecting, I always really like that book because it means that the author was, you know, it was definitely plausible, but I was not expecting it. So I did really enjoy it. And as I've said, this is the second Riley Sager book I have read. Both have had the building or the house as a main character in the book. And that is the same with Lock Every Door. So if you're looking for a light, you know, suspenseful summer read, I would recommend Lock Every Door. The second book in those, you know, 2-3 spots is The Diamond Eye by, I can't even read my own writing here. Kate Quinn, I think. We'll put the cover in right here so you can see it. So this is the same author that wrote the book, The Alice Network, which was a popular book a few years ago. And I read and enjoyed that book as well. Kate Quinn, that's the author. All of her books are World War II historical fiction. I know a lot of people feel that World War II historical fiction is really like overdone and they're over it. And I completely get that. I enjoy reading World War II historical fiction because that's a period of time I find very interesting, and especially if it's a topic that I was not aware of before. And that is the case with this book. The Diamond Eye is about a Soviet woman who is a sniper in World War II. So it takes place, the Alice Network took place between World War I and World War II, kind of like going back and forth in time. And I don't know if all of this author's books do that, but this book did as well. So The Diamond Eye goes back and forth between the very early points of World War II to right about 1942, mid-1942, where she is actually sent to the United States as a diplomatic kind of tour of the United States after the United States entered the war with the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And this is historical fiction. So it's based on actual facts. This person who I now can't remember her name because who's the Russian sniper, she existed. Like, she's an actual person. And she did come to the United States. There was a Soviet goodwill mission to the United States during the middle of World War II. after the bombing of Pearl Harbor. It was summer of 1942, because the Soviet Union was trying to get help from the United States. They wanted them to help on their Eastern Front, because at this time, Germany was invaded the Soviet Union and their cities were being held by the German army. So they were trying to get the United States to come there, as well as to help England and fight in the Pacific. So this goodwill tour took place, it was like the whole summer of 1942. And this Russian Soviet sniper became friends with Eleanor Roosevelt during that period of time, during that tour. And Eleanor Roosevelt actually visited her after the war in the Soviet Union. They were friends for life. So that's something that I was not aware of. I did not know this had ever happened. And I thought it was very interesting, and I really enjoyed the book. So the book bounces back and forth between her being in the United States for this goodwill tour and becoming friends with Eleanor Roosevelt. And there's a fictional thing that happens in that part of the book. And the beginning part of the war about how this history student, she was a college history student, became like the best sniper that the Soviet Union had ever had. So that is The Diamond Eye by Kate Quinn. Cover, because I can't read my writing, but I would recommend it. Number one book thus far of 2022, and likely will be number one book of the year, is The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. This book took my breath away. So good. So Emma Donoghue wrote the book Room, which was a movie several years ago. And that book was amazing as well. Pull the Stars is a completely different topic. Pull the Stars takes place 1919 in Dublin, Ireland. There's a lot going on at that time in Ireland. You have the end of World War I. Actually, the war was still going on, I believe, at that point, so it must have been 1918. You have the Spanish flu. And you also have a failed Irish uprising, because at this time, Ireland was part of the British Empire. It was under British control. So there's the Irish in Dublin all of Ireland are feeling the results of that failed uprising for freedom. The book took my breath away. It was one of those books that I started reading and inhaled and could not put down until I finished. And then I actually went back and read it again because I needed to read it and digest it. The book is told through the eyes of a nurse during the flu pandemic in a hospital. And she is a nurse in the maternity ward of this Catholic hospital in Dublin. And it takes place over 3 days. So it is fast and furious. She is under the watch of normally the nuns, the sisters who are the head of the maternity department, but everybody's sick and she is thrown in charge. And the character development of this book, the way that you're able to actually feel what is happening. And to me, what was really interesting reading it at the beginning of 2022, as we're still in, not over yet, but we were over the worst part of, hopefully, the COVID pandemic. And I could not have read this book before this year. I could have read it in 2020. I wouldn't have been able to read it. I don't know if I would have been able to read it in 2021, because reading a book where every sight and sound and everything that's happening is related to this illness, this pandemic that has taken people's breaths literally away, it would have been too much for me to read in 2020 and probably through most of 2021. The ironic thing is the author finished this book right before the COVID pandemic really started. It was going to the publisher in March of 2020. So amazing foresight in her part. And she wrote it for the 100th anniversary of the events that had happened. Cannot recommend this book enough. There is just like I said, the character development, the storyline, the prose, it's just a beautifully written book. Where, like I said, I read it two ways. I read it and I devoured it, and then I went back and I savored every little bit of it. So The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue is thus far my top book of 2022. If you've made it this far, thank you so much. If you are a reader, I would love it if you give me your book recommendations in the comments, because I am always looking for a new book to read. Yeah, I love, love reading, obviously, and I'm always looking for a good book recommendation, just like I'm always looking for good TV or good floss tube recommendations or good stitching recommendations. So please feel free to share. Thank you so much for coming to visit with me, and I hope to be back in another couple or 3 weeks. And have a great day, everybody, and happy stitching.